This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Culinary Arts, Southern Style. Chef Troy Gagliardo on this edition of Conversations. Troy Gagliardo is a self-made culinary success story. His down-home, genuine personality plays well on television. He's a regular on the tube in his hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. And at certain times, a national audience gets a glimpse of his cooking style, whether on Fox and Friends Weekend or doing commercials with Dale Earnhardt Jr. His lighthearted approach to Southern cuisine is fun to watch. He's published a cookbook entitled Pseudo Southern, a playful twist on the art of Southern cooking. Now, you'll have to pardon the pun, but he has spiced up his culinary portfolio with his own line of spices called Motown Spice Provisions. We welcome chef, writer, and television personality Troy Gagliardo to this edition of Conversations. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're kind of a self-made guy. How did you get started in being a chef?
Oh man, it's a crazy trip. You know, my two sides of my family, one side Southern, one side Italian. So I grew up with the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You know, one grandmother was making pastas and sausages while the other one was canning green beans and making biscuits. You know, so it all started for me there, even though I didn't realize it at the time. I really thought my path was going to be baseball.
Okay.
You know, so I played a little college baseball, and really the culinary thing started for me when I got married. We have thinking about a family, and I was thinking, you know, I don't have any of my family's recipes. So I started a food journal, which sounds kind of weird, but since I didn't know anything about cooking at all, you know, I was obviously watching TV and read magazines and just playing around trying to remember what my parents and grandparents did. So that's kind of where it started, and then the restaurant thing kind of happened later.
Yeah. What was your first job?
Making tomato boxes, actually, in Michigan. We lived on a huge fruit farm. We rented a house there, and I wanted to buy a guitar and an amplifier one summer, and I worked all summer making tomato boxes. It was $50 in a bundle and got 25 cents a bundle.
Now, what was your first job in the restaurant business?
In the restaurant business, McDonald's.
Oh, really? Okay.
In high school, and you know, I loved it. I did. I think that's when the thrill first started. You know, it's hard to explain to somebody that's never done it or maybe doesn't like it, but the rush, you know, the thrill of the rush, you get tickets hanging, there's just no possible way you can get it all done. And I think that sucked me in. I'm not much of an adrenaline junkie,
right?
But man, that sucked me in right there. And at the time, it wasn't even really about the food. It was just about the speed and the
process. Yeah,
just getting it done, you know, accomplishment.
Yeah. What was you used to own restaurants. Tell me about that.
We had a couple restaurants just north of Charlotte in North Carolina. They were all grilled, no fryer, no microwave, babies of mine. You know, it started actually from the food journal that I started. A lot of the recipes were in there. Right. And it was funny because we used to bring that same notebook to the restaurant, and that's how the recipes were formulated, and the staff called it the Bible.
Okay.
Funny enough, the Bible is gone. Somebody lost it.
Oh no!
But yeah, those were good times for me. Not the best economical time to start a restaurant, but man, I learned so much. I've opened some restaurants and closed some restaurants, and I always tell people, man, I learned more about closing a restaurant than I think, you know, opening a restaurant. There's just, you know, it's not something everybody wants to do, but you know, it's just one of those processes in life that, you know, everybody goes through things for a certain reason. And I think when I get the opportunity to open another restaurant, all those processes are going to be a little more fine-tuned this time.
Right. How did you make the transition from being there day to day doing, you know, the restaurant business into more, I guess, I'll call it sort of a celebrity type chef with writing and television and so on and so forth?
You know, that's kind of weird too, because I actually grew up in the restaurant world. After I left McDonald's, I went to KFC, and, you know, then I went to college. But when I came back home and I really decided I wanted to open a restaurant, I got in the corporate world. So I did that for a while. I treated it like college. You know, I learned about P&Ls and food cost and labor cost and lights and tables and that fun stuff. But, you know, it wasn't until I still had my restaurant open when the TV thing kind of came. They came and did a story. on the restaurant. We met the host and just became friends and that sort of stuff. When we closed the restaurant, she asked me to come be on her show, and I'm like, there's no way I can cook. I can cook, but I can't tell anybody how to do it, kind of thing. So I got the opportunity to go on the show, and that's kind of where it all started. Was I went 1 week, and a month later I went back, and then they said, hey, we want to do this on a full-time basis, and that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
So, TV, you got to sponsors, and, it all has to make sense. So the fact that we've done Troy's Everyday Eats for 10 years now, it blows me away. So a lot of the other stuff is stemmed from that. It just opened a lot of doors. Obviously, over 10 years, you collect a lot of recipes. You write a lot of recipes. I've probably got, 2,500 recipes in a portfolio that, I can pull at any time. Wow. I don't know, one of those things I'm organized with. Yeah. Nothing else in my life is ever that organized. But, then, you come to the point where, hey, I've got all these recipes, what do I do with them? Right. So I just put them into a book.
But being a chef is really that's a real creative process, isn't it?
It is. For a fat guy, it's not, because you're always hungry, so you're always thinking about food. But no, it is, because, it's hard to create anything new nowadays. Everything's been done, Even if it's something as simple as a biscuit, it's been done. It's not, you can't reinvent the biscuit,
right,
but you can transform it into different things, and you can, add and play around and use different ingredients. And so it is an artistic process to it. I don't consider myself an artist by any stretch of the imagination. I can draw some dishes, barely, just for somebody to figure out how to plate it or something like that. But yeah, I think it is a process.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Hunger. No.
Hunger?
It's weird, because I can get inspiration from just like walking through a farmer's market, or looking at an old recipe of mine, or flipping through a magazine. It just can come from anywhere. A painting, you look at it and go, man, that kind of looks like zucchini or eggplant, or, man, if I did this. And it's just, I think when your mindset is in that mode,
right,
I don't think it goes away. And if it does, you probably didn't love it to begin with.
So you're just always thinking about, how can I do something a little different, put a little different spin on things?
Always. And it's not even, I constantly learn. I want to learn something every day. Yeah. Spend time with different chefs, and they have their take on, certain things, or they may have a different technique. And, I'm self-taught, so I didn't go to culinary school, so I don't know the correct way to do anything, But, I think it's just learning every day is just what really kind of keeps me going. And I want to. It's not like I got to open a book today.
Right.
Yeah,
you're very fortunate, and you're doing something you love.
Way more fortunate than I ever thought I could to make a living doing something like this. And there's other parts to the puzzle to kind of make it all work. But what I'm doing now really has given me the creative freedom to do what I want. And I mean, how awesome is that?
Yeah, for sure. Who's your favorite chef?
There's a bunch. Emeril Lagasse is probably my all-time favorite. I grew up on public television. I grew up as a chef on public television. First show, was Justin Wilson. George Hirsch had a show, Know Your Fire, and that, I learned a lot from. I still have the VCR tapes, if that tells you anything. Okay. And I still go back and watch them. And but Emeril, when Emeril Live was on the air, it was like I didn't miss it. And I've got a lot of those taped too. There was just something about not just his food knowledge and what he can do, but his connection to the audience. And I didn't know anything about connection to the audience, back then. But and it was like he was talking to you. It was like he really just sucks you in to his realm. And I got an opportunity. I actually knew somebody who worked for him and didn't have the most positive things to say about him, but he worked for him. So right. I'm sure a lot of people that work for me don't have a lot of positive things to say about me either. But I got an opportunity to meet him when he opened his restaurant in Charlotte, which is no longer open. But I went down, and our station did an interview with him. And man, he welcomed me. Hey, come here, let me show you the kitchen, chef, and walked around and invited us back for dinner. It was my wife's birthday, and they sat us right down front. And it's probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. As I get there, I'm taking my coat off, getting her hanging on the chair, and he kind of looks over to Expo and sees me and goes, "Hey, chef, how you doing?" And like the place stopped, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is pretty cool," So I kind of play, "Hey, chef, how you doing?" But inside I was just like, "Oh my gosh, did that really just happen?" So, and he sent food out, and he was just so hospitable, and you can see it's genuine.
Yeah.
There's not, it's not a play. He's not like that when the cameras go off. He's not any different, So. Right. to see him on TV and to cook his recipes and read his books and then actually get to meet him and confirm that he was as awesome as I knew he was a huge thing for me.
That's neat.
So,
That's neat. Anybody else you really like?
you know, we have a lot of local chefs in Charlotte that I'm fans of. On TV, you know, Bobby Flay obviously is a real good one. I like Lydia, you know, Rick Bayless. I like a lot of those guys. There's just so many.
I'm curious, you know, really probably over the past, I don't know, maybe decade or so, it's almost like chefs have become kind of rock stars. Why do you think that is? What's the fascination with it?
You know, I'm not sure how that all started, and I'm not sure where it started. you know, it's hard to explain. You know, even our town in Charlotte, North Carolina, you know, we have a culinary guild. It's called the Piedmont Culinary Guild, and it's made up of farmers and chefs, and it's we've really made a community. And you know, these events and stuff that we do, we don't do it for the celebrity or the exposure. We're doing it to raise awareness for sustainability of food and all that. But I think in turn, it puts you out in front of certain people and they make you into what they want you to be. Man, we've got dozens of rock stars in Charlotte, you know. I mean, it's a really cool culinary scene. I'm just happy just to even be a small part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure. You mentioned like sustainability of food. I mean, in recent years, there's been a big move towards organic food and healthy eating and clean. What's your take on that?
Well, I know I don't look like I eat healthy. You know, I think it's important. You know, I think food's not just nutrition. I mean, food is, you know, there's so much to food that makes people who they are, you know, whether they know it or not, whether it's a cultural thing or whatever. And I think a lot of that's been taken away by processed, canned, bagged, you know, whatever you want to call it. Right. So I think, you know, especially where we're at, you know, as a country, you can see the movement happening. And it started small with guys like Emeril Lagasse, who said, hey, I'm only going to use this guy because he grows it here. And, you know, so my take on it is not just to follow it as a trend, but, you know, just to take it as like, this is what my grandparents did. You know, we had a huge garden. We canned and raised so we could live through the winter when I grew up in Michigan. And so it's more to me than just a gimmick. I mean, it's the way that we're going to have to grow our food to be able to continue, because it, you know, without getting, you know, too Debbie Downer, but with all the sickness and disease, you know, it's coming from somewhere, and it's probably not coming from organically grown food.
Yeah. There's also seems to be more of a move, especially with younger people, towards like a vegetarian or vegan diet. Now, how do you fit that concept into Southern style?
Well, believe it or not, Southern food is a lot of vegetables. You know, I rarely remember having a whole lot of meat. You know, even in my grandparents were Southern when we lived in Michigan. They were from Arkansas, so. You know, we didn't eat a whole lot of meat anyway. You know, we'd have the occasional piece of fried chicken, maybe a slab of bacon in the morning or something like that. But, you know, vegetables is what Southern food's all about, you know, I think. And it's, you know, it's hard. It's why I always respect people who can, you know, put stuff up for the winter, you know, they're canning beans and doing that stuff. So, you know, the vegetarian diet is huge right now. And, you know, paleo and all that sort of stuff is, well, I don't want to get too far out there, but, you know, some of it's gimmicky, but some of it really is that people want to do the right things. And, you know, an animal-based diet is not, you know, probably the right thing for us as humans, even though a burger and a steak and, you know, bacon and all that stuff is great. I think we should probably eat a little less of it. Right.
Well, speaking of bacon, now you're going to start your own bacon company, is that correct?
Yeah, we have. It's called Uncle Hamp's Carolina Bacon, and started with a buddy of mine. We grew up in the restaurant business together. We were going to do it out on his farm in South Carolina, but we've actually hooked up with the Goodnight Brothers in Boone, North Carolina, and they're going to produce the bacon. We'll have two sides to it. We'll have a retail side where you'll have it in, you know, Fresh Market, Whole Foods, stuff like that. And then we'll have a chef series, which is what I originally had the idea of, to be able to source all the pork bellies from North and South Carolina and sell regionally right there. You know, I say regionally, you know, basically all over, but you'll know what farm it came from, you know when, where, and how, the whole thing. So it's just going back to old processes, just like it's named after Uncle Hamp, which is my friend's uncle. Okay. And he used the old-fashioned process, you know, be hand rubbed and hardwood smoked and no funny stuff in it, so just a really true, genuine product. And I'm looking forward to holding a pack of that because we've been testing for about a year now, and I'm ready to eat some for real.
I'm sure. Tell me about your spice company. How did that come about?
Well, that was another strange thing. When we had the restaurant, we had this one spice, and I'm a marketing genius too, by the way. I called this spice mix. It's pretty unique, I know. And people would say, hey, what'd you put on my steak, or what'd you put on my pizza? And I'd say, here, take some home, try it on your chicken or whatever. And I was giving so much of this stuff away, I was like, I should probably be selling this, know? So the gentleman that I was buying my spices from, he's, sources from all over the world and gets it in bulk. And, I had him start making our seasoning and packaging it and putting it up on the counter. We would sell 25, 50, 75 a month. And I was like, I need to do something with this. So out of desperation, when the restaurant closed, I was like, I need to market this. And we got it in the Fresh Market, who is a sponsor from Troy's Everyday Eats, my show. And so after we did that for a couple of years, the gentleman who started the spice business was ready to retire. He'd had it for, about 12 years. And he said, man, you're doing part of this already. Why don't you do the rest, meaning the wholesale end of it? So we jumped in and bought it, and we've doubled the business in the last 4 years. And we've got clients like the Carolina Panthers. We do their rubs, and a lot of local restaurants who, don't want to take the time to make their breaders or spices. And so it's just one of those things that just kind of kept rolling, and it wasn't anything I intended to, blow up like it has.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. Tell me about your relationship with Dale Earnhardt Jr. I know the two of you have done some commercials together, and of course you're right there in Charlotte, in the heart of motorsports, and NASCAR. So what's that relationship like?
Well, I met him a long time ago, and it was just he would come to the restaurant and eat. His shop was right down the road, and a lot of the guys would come in and eat, so we got to meet a lot of the drivers, which we thought was cool. And I've always been a Dale Jr. fan, so you kind of got to keep it cool, when you meet him and stuff. So we did some. He would come to the restaurant, and then it kind of just developed from there. We've done some dinners out at his lake house, and then we became part of his Dale Jr. Foundation. We'd go in for the past 3 years, and they would auction me off to do dinners. And, you got Rick Hendrick and, all these guys down there bidding on you. And Dale actually bid on his own dinner this year and won. So, I've just gotten to meet him. And, that's what I say about food is there's so much more to food. Like, Dale and I probably wouldn't have connected and been able to help each other out like we have had it not been for food. Had he not come to the restaurant and ate a buffalo chicken pizza,
right?
Which was his favorite.
Right.
And so it's just one of those things where we've done some commercials together and got to know each other a little bit. And then I'm sure, when you're somebody of that status, it's hard to bring somebody into your circle.
Right.
So we'd come out at his lake house. We cooked for a bachelor party out there, and then we did his sister's rehearsal dinner. We've done when he got engaged, we did his engagement dinner, and so we just gotten to know each other like that, and doing a couple other things. But the foundation thing is what special. We've raised some money for his foundation, and he's donated to like the WSRE Foundation event. He donated hot passes to the May race in Charlotte 600, and we're going to tailgate with them. They get a behind-the-scenes tour of Junior Motorsports, and Kelly's going to be there, and I'm doing a luncheon there. So it's just one of those things to where it's kind of cool that you think, somebody that raises so much money and helps so many people that you can actually help him.
Right.
So I treasure that. That's cool.
Yeah, we were talking offset, and you said he does an awful lot that people don't realize as far as charitable.
People think he just gets behind the wheel and just does his thing and then, goes home. But his foundation helps so many people. I can't even list all the different organizations that they help. And every year at this foundation, they have a film, and it shows you. And, just every year, by the end of it, you're in tears. It's like, man, I just can't believe that, this little idea that started from, a guy who races cars can help this many people. And in the long run, that's what it's all about. Not everybody gets that. But, I guess chefs and race car drivers are similar, and, people are always asking you, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So it's nice to be able to hook up with, a group that understands how it all works.
I thought it was kind of funny. You were saying you cooked a couple of meals for him prior to him winning a couple of big races. One of them being his last Daytona 500.
Daytona
victory, right?
500 just a few days before, and I teased him. I said, "Look, man, I probably should be cooking for you before every race." No disrespect, but yeah, he thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. He hadn't brought you on payroll yet for doing that.
No, not yet, not yet.
So as we tape this program, he had a little bit of a tough year, but I really respect him for being so upfront and honest about the way he has approached the situation with the concussions. And
Yeah.
I think he's brought and shined a light on that for not just for race car drivers, but just for athletes across all sports to talk about the concussion issues.
What I really, follow him on Facebook, you get all these posts and you see different things, but there was one day he was in a local grocery store in our town and he was doing a Facebook Live saying, hey, the doctor said I need to get out under the lights and be around people, because it's part of the process and it helps. And I was just like, somebody in his position would never be as upfront about what he's going through. And, I can't say enough good things about him. Yeah. He's just a down-home, good guy, but I think he gets his celebrity and what it means and what he can do with it.
Yeah. Well, we wish him all the best because I agree with you. It seems like he's doing an awful lot and shining the light on a lot of good things. What do you most enjoy about your job?
Man, there's a wish job. I got so many jobs, it's hard to say.
The cooking part, doing the chef. Cooking for someone else.
That's where, and I always said this in the restaurant business too. It's like, you get there in the morning and you prep like crazy and you prepare and, but as soon as service starts, that's your moment. For me, planning out the show and stuff, that's the mundane. Shopping and prepping is the mundane thing. But when I actually get to step, on stage, in front of the camera, in front of the lights, and teach people about my food and they're listening, that's what I enjoy the most. I love when somebody shoots me a picture on Facebook or something, hey, I made your whatever and it turned out great, or hey, I made it and it didn't come out anything like yours, and then I can interact with them. Right. And I guess, just the connection with people is what I like about what I do, because it's one thing to be in a restaurant and just bang it out all day, and you go home, turn off the lights, and that's it. You count the money and go home. There's a connection there, and I think going into this next process of the restaurant business that I've learned from that, and I'm gonna use that a little more in my next restaurant gig. Yeah.
What's your long-term goal? Where do you see yourself?
World domination. No, I'm just kidding. Now, you know what? My wife and I, we've been married for 26 years. We have two kids. They're 21 and 18, and they're both in college. And, being in this business and doing what I've done, I've spent a lot of time away from home or just maybe in my own head, not present as much. And I'd like to be able to get to a point to where, things are going good enough to where we can really enjoy, spending some time together. Not just my wife, but my wife and kids where, we go into a hotel and there's an extra room go, oh, it'd be cool if the girls were here, know? Yeah. So that's long-term, I'd like to be successful enough that would give me the opportunity to spend time with my family.
Yeah. I'm curious. You're talking about restaurants. What the next time around? What do you visualize as your restaurant? What would your concept be?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that because it's more than a vision. I'm a stickler when it comes to when I have an idea, I write it down. Whether it's stupid, it is, or just whatever. I always write it down. So I've compiled a lot of those notes and I've formatted 5 different concepts now, and we're in the process of talking to some people and seeing if we can, different restaurant groups and seeing if we can make it work. Obviously, in vein of what I do, the pseudo Southern thing is kind of, what I'd like to do with some craft cocktails and, local wines and craft beers and, fun, upbeat atmosphere, just casual,
Right. Kind of a fun.
Yeah, but I've got them all day long, man. That's the first one. I won't give away the name just yet.
I got you. Tell me about the cookbook Pseudo Southern. What's the reader going to find?
Well, when you first open it up, one of the first things you see, I've talked about family, is, a picture of my wife and kids standing in the kitchen. Of course, it's a made-up picture, but, to get everybody together like that. But that's what it's about, is family. And when I came up with the concept for the book, it was, first of all, Pseudo Southern doesn't mean fake Southern. It means kind of like, but not really.
Right.
So I took kind of what I remembered of what my grandparents did on both sides and just put it into a book. And there's a little editorial before each recipe. The introduction talks about my grandparents, about snapping beans under their willow trees, and how, I wish I would have paid more attention to what they were saying. And, it's moments like that you'll never get back, but, you'll never forget them in your mind. It's like, it's just one of those special things. So that's kind of where the book kind of stemmed from. And it was, like I said, I had to compile, all these recipes, I felt like I needed to do something with. So there's a second one in the works yet. Or next, and it's going to be a little bigger, a little better, a little faster, so to speak.
Yeah. So now, do you cook at home?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I very rarely let my wife cook, and she's an awesome cook. She's Southern, down home Southern, and she can throw down. Yeah. But usually I'm testing a recipe because, now my home kitchen is my test kitchen.
Okay.
And it's kind of nice being at home, being able to test stuff and, just try it on different people. So yeah, I cook all the time, every day. There's rarely a day go by that I don't cook.
Okay. And what would your typical meal be like?
So
let's say you're not testing something. Let's just say, what, I want something good to eat tonight. What would Troy do?
My go-tos, roast chicken. There's nothing better than a simple roast chicken that's seasoned well and cooked properly, and with maybe some side greens or some nice rice. Just something real simple. We don't go overboard. I mean, there's those nice when you really want a steak or something, but just simple down home. We eat a lot of salads. I know it doesn't look like it, but we eat a lot of salads, and salads are one of those things you can put proteins on. You can do whatever you want and make them as big and bad as you want. So we do eat a lot of salads too.
Yeah, I saw a video. You were doing some interesting things as far as tailgating was concerned. And so what's your favorite tailgating recipe?
Has to be we used to do it at the restaurant. It's called La Bella Salsiccia, which is the beautiful sausage translated, and it's Italian sausage, just grilled, and it's got this funky little sauce with marinated tomatoes and feta cheese and black olives and balsamic vinegar, and then cheese is melted on top of it and a bun. And I mean, it's just, my mouth's watering now just thinking about it. I'm going to have to figure one of those out here pretty soon. Yeah. But you can't go wrong with wings either. Wings. And, the thing about tailgating is that, it's got to be one-handed. It's hard to, eat with a bowl and a spoon and stuff. So chili and all that stuff is fine. But, for me, if you can hold it in one hand and have a beverage in the other, that's like the ultimate right there.
That's absolutely correct. That's, you're right. We're getting hungry just thinking about it. All right. So you got a new book in the works?
I do. No title just yet. But and actually, ironically enough, it's formatted around salads.
Okay.
So I just think you can do so much with salads, and each chapter will be a little different, and there will still be the stories and a little more instructional. The book that I've got out now is basically for the home cook who can just go 1 through 5 and get it done.
Good deal. So new book, new baking line, continued television, doing some writing, having fun. Best of luck to you, my friend. Enjoyed the conversation.
You, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Troy Gagliardo. He is I guess for lack of a better term, I'll call him a celebrity chef. He owns a television show up in Charlotte, North Carolina, does some writing, owns a spice company, bacon line coming out, another cookbook coming out, has a cookbook called Pseudo Southern, by the way. So we appreciate him visiting with us. And by the way, you can keep up with him and all the fun things that he is doing online at cheftroy.net. And by the way, you can see more of our conversations online at wsre.org/conversations, as well as on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Jeff Weeks. I thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the broadcast. Take wonderful care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.